Hey, Raph, where you going? Out to a movie. That okay with you? Yeah.
Only effort, loyalty, earn the right to wear the dragon doji. You are my eyes and ears. Find them.
Leonardo, Michelangelo,
It's me.
Donatello, and Raphael.
Today we are together celebrating the 35th anniversary with the cast of the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
I'm James Saito. I'm the Shredder in the first movie.
Kevin Clash. I was Splinter in the first and the second.
I'm Josh Peiss, and I played Raphael.
I'm Leif Tilden, and I was Donatello in the first and second Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies.
I'm David Foreman, and I played Leonardo in the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, 1990.
No dates. No dates.
No day.
Take that back.
I'm Michelin Sisti, and I was Michelangelo. Yeah, and I stuck around because I liked the first one, so I stuck around for the second one.
Very cool. We'll kick things off. I want to know what started you out performing in the manner of like in this movie where you're like completely covered, barely visible, barely able to breathe.
I think for most of us, we didn't know what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is. You know, it's like my agents called and said, we have an audition for you for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I said, can you say that again? The words did not compute. And then they said, you're going to be a turtle. And I was like, but then, you know, I grew up in a very dangerous New York City neighborhood, and a lot of the people in that neighborhood were always trying to be bigger and tougher than they were as a survival technique. And I had the idea to go into the audition to kind of have that kind of physicality. And I thought, you know, turtles kind of go like this. So I kind of like put it all together and went in and auditioned, you know, with that idea of the character, and that did the trick. We were flown to London, you know, body casted. I think Dave had been body casted before, but for me, it was, you know, it was a freak out. You know, like I had straws in my nose, and I was sealed. You know, I had ropes holding my arms totally sealed. And then we found out later that they left us in there a little longer than needed so that they can see how bad we were freaking out.
Wow.
Yep.
And that was just the beginning of many freakouts on my part. But I'll pass the torch.
Well, we had a similar experience, all three of us who were in New York. Dave, of course, had already done body work and had worked with Henson's before, rather successfully, I may say. But we were all new to it. For me, the biggest transition, well, you talk about being totally encased and not able to breathe. So it began in the womb for me. But I carried it on through my entire adult life until I became a turtle. And I said, I'm home.
I was living in Chinatown. I was living in this like little loft that was a sweatshop factory that my girlfriend at the time and I cleaned out of all the machines and textiles. So I was like in Chinatown, and we lived above this underground comic book store. And I was a huge comic book collector. My mother died when I was little, and my dad used to give me a comic book and bring my lunch to me every day at school. So I was really into comic books starting as a kid. My dad was too. My dad was an illustrator and just loved comic books himself. And so when I saw this underground comic book store, I actually did see the Ninja Turtles because I was kind of curious about what the new stuff was going on. And I knew who Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman were, Mirage Studios and all that kind of stuff. But the comic book that I read was like black and white, and they were vigilantes, and they were like, you know, like serious, and they all had red bandanas like Raphael. And I was like, so when I got this audition, I was just like, wow, this is going to be dark. You know, this is going to be intense. But I also didn't know what it's going to be because I've never been in a suit before, and so I went to the audition, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to read you for Donatello. You're perfect for Donatello." And I was just like, "What does that mean?" And anyway, I did like a reading, and then I got a call back, and I finally met Steve Barron. And I did already have a knowledge before my final callback that we were physicalizing the characters, and we weren't really necessarily saying the lines that we would, Steve kind of explained that, yes, we would be. And so for my final audition, I said, you know what? Have someone else read the line. I don't want to like read this because it seems it's all about my body. Can someone read it so I don't have to be in my head and just be here? And so I can just be creative in my spine and stuff. And they kind of looked at me funny, but then Steve was like, sure, yeah, okay, yeah, no one's done that. And so I just physicalized it. And it was such an amazing feeling. I was very free to just be the character. And then I got it, which is kind of weird. And I spent a lot of time like making my own bow staff on the roof of my loft apartment in Chinatown, looking over, American China, and kind of getting into it. And I remember Josh mentioned the Creature Shop in London for the fittings. And when I really, which was like NASA of puppetry, like all these idiot savants and stations sculpting characters, and Falcor's head from Neverending Story was in the corner collecting dust.
Yep.
And all these characters from Dark Crystal from hanging from the ceiling. And I was just like, oh my God, like the universe was sort of, I dropped down this rabbit hole. I realized I'm like down this rabbit hole, and I'm like being introduced to this whole world I had known nothing about. I studied experimental theater and was just like in this mind trip of Sam Shepard and Jerzy Grotowski and I was like, not, what is this? Like I did watch the Muppet Show, but it was, something I loved. It was fun, but it was more of a distraction from doing homework, So
I just want to add that,
yeah,
I did a lot of experimental theater too. And in a way that this was like experimental theater. That's how it felt to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was...
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I was going to say that, like in my audition, I was like outside the box of a normal audition. Like I was being asked just to be in my body.
Yeah.
And I was like, a lot about like, I can't wait to read your book, Josh. Josh just finished this book, what's the title of it? Like Out of Your Mind?
You mean this?
Yeah.
This is a galley copy. It's called Lose Your Mind, The Path to Creative Invincibility. And you can pre-order it right now on Amazon. It comes out September 30th.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Thanks for that, Leaf.
Yeah.
I do mention some Ninja Turtle stuff in there.
Awesome. So anyway,
cool.
But like lose your mind. Like, a lot of the you be in your body, so that was, but what really, my whole point of this long dissertation is when I realized what this was going to be, the journey that was about to happen, is that this guy, John Stevenson, the head of the Henson Creature Shop that made all the characters for Dark Crystal and Neverending Story. So let me show you something. We just did this commercial and with a polar bear. And I'm like, oh, cool. They didn't say someone was in a polar bear. They said with a polar bear. He put his VHS in and showed me all these takes of this polar bear running across this Norwegian glacier. And I was just like, it's amazing. And like he stopped and I go, okay, how does this pertain to this? And he's like, oh, Dave Foreman, who's playing Leonardo, was in that polar bear suit. I'm like, that's a suit? And he goes, oh yeah, we made that. We did, all the hair and all that. I'm like, and I said, can I see that again? And so we went through it again. And it was Dave Foreman inside that polar bear suit brought that animal that's alive. And you had no idea that it was not a real polar bear. He was beautiful. It was the flowingness of his body, gliding across the glacier effortlessly. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, not that I sort of had the language and the knowingness of doing it yet, but I saw the potential of what we were going to do based on Dave's skill and talent and gift for filling out a suit. So there you go.
Yeah. So my introduction to the Turtles was through John Stevenson from the Henson workshop. And John showed me this comic book, and I looked at it and I went, no, I've never heard of these Ninja Turtles. And he said, would you like to play one of these characters? I went, well, can I play Spider-Man instead? And because these characters were so bizarre, you know. And jokingly aside, I then auditioned for Steve and Simon West, who also co-produced Limelight. And somehow I got the job. And I think they needed someone at Henson's to mold the turtles on, to start creating. Right. Start creating the model for them and how they would move, and how best they could move with human beings being inside these turtle outfits. So that was my experience of my introduction to Ninja Turtles, and I always remember the very first day on set. I think even I, as a creature performer coming from Bears and Never Ending Story creature, even I struggled on that very first day, and I think we all struggled in that tunnel. We were all on our hands and knees praying. it was the toughest. I mean, it was tough for me, and I had 10 years of creature performance experience. So these guys, you know, Josh, Leif, and Mish, I could only feel their pain because I was in pain.
Yeah, and just want to add that the costume, if you can even call it that, it weighed 70 pounds, you know, and plus at that, I think that was the day we were walking in the water in the sewers, so everything was wet. We were slipping, sweating, which probably added another 5 pounds.
And we couldn't see.
Couldn't see.
These little slits under the bandana that was like literally the size of a pinhole, like literally, where we kind of had to sort of, trace my marks. And our first day in the sewer system, it's that opening sequence. We run, we turn the corner, and we all have to hit our marks to do a high five. There was a series of movements we had to do and hit. And it was like a journey. And you had to sort of work it out blindly and not bump into each other. And you kind of had to seriously do this sort of go through it and memorize, okay, a half a step, one step here, da, da, da. Like I was completely in the dark. I had no idea where I was.
I just want to add to that I think one thing that helped bond us is that at a certain point, because we couldn't see a lot of the time, it was almost like a kinetic relationship, a spatial relationship to one another, which I feel like helped the story in a sense, because we had to use other senses to,
Yeah, I was going to mention because, when you talk about it, it makes total sense. Not being able to see, it's dark, wet. It sounds like a nightmare, but when you watch it on the screen, it all seems so seamless. You wouldn't be able to tell any of this from watching on the outside.
We had a lot of good guides there. Like Jim Henson was there for a little while, and Brian and all these puppeteers who are manipulating our faces, who are like, Sesame Street and the Muppets, and who've had a real career doing this kind of stuff. So we had a lot of information and help, that we desperately needed. At least I did.
Brian reached out to me. He said, I have this movie and it's It's Ninja Turtles, and so he asked me would I be interested in doing the movie, and the character is a 4-foot rat named Splinter, who has to take care of. Yeah, just
Typecast.
by the way,
Yeah.
by the way, and he takes care of 4 teenage turtles. And I was like, I don't know any. I was like, what is that? What is it? Is it something that's out? Is it something, And he said, well, no, it's a very popular, comic book, and you can see it and everything. But would you? I said, sure. That sounds like fun, because I love doing movies and stuff. So that's how I got to do it. It's so funny listening to these poor guys, because James and I, we didn't have that experience.
What about you, James? Do you remember how you got the job when you first was introduced to the Turtles?
Well, I had an audition for this part, and well, what I had to prepare was the opening speech when I'm talking to all the kids in the warehouse, and you are here because the outside world rejects you, and all that kind of stuff. And so I was ready to just speak it out, and it was like Shakespeare. I was going to do all this for, and so I'm in the room with the directors and director and everybody, and so I'm ready to do this. And he said, "All right, just stand real still, and we're going to come in real close on you." So I had, so I had to say the whole thing. And I just had to stand here, and all these movements that I had, I just had to say it like this. And, as I look back on it, I think what they did was they came in real tight on my face. And because this is all you really see. So I think this is the part of me that got the part.
There was a moment when early on, one of the first scenes we did with James as Shredder, and I was kind of like, wow, this guy's bringing it. And I remember, like, they said cut, and they took his mask off, and I was like, oh my God, like this guy's amazing. Like his face, why do they put a mask on? Because I was like, that's the guy. Now I'm afraid. And I knew at that moment that underneath he was in the moment as Shredder.
Before the movie, how did you immerse yourself with the characters?
This was my introduction to the movie. Was when I got cast. There was a young guy who was in the agency, and he was at the front desk, and I got this part, and I didn't really know what to make of it. And he says, "Oh, James, that's so cool. It's and I said, what is it?" And he said, it's a comic book. It's this really cool comic book. So I was living in New York City, and I went down to St. Mark's Comics book, and I bought whatever comic books I could buy at the time of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I read that. I read all those to get some idea of the world. I never watched the cartoons. I didn't know anything about the cartoons. And fortunately, our film, the first film, is very true to the comic book, and has the grittiness and the darkness. And so that was how I got into the world, what was through the comic books.
I did look at the comics, and ultimately how the character that I created emerged was partially from being in the suit and the intensity of being in the suit, and that informed my creation of Raphael and his angst and his inner turmoil. Was not far off from my experience in the suit. And so I was more informed by the being inside the suit than than the comic books. Like that's kind of how it all came to life for me.
The whole character of Splinter, I just thought he was very cool and collected. Hardly moved until he needed to. Like and once I got the puppet on, that's when I kind of knew who he was.
Yeah.
And that's what brought it to life to me. Once I got to London and started putting it on, and then seeing what he could do, his old attitude. And so what was really funny is when since it was just me with my hand up, and then all these guys and their turtles at the end when they went to hug him, I mean, it was crazy. It was I was like trying to control the puppet because they were head to toe and I was just a hand. So some of the shots at the end, I thought he looked terrible because he was like this, so and I was trying to keep my composure with Splinter, but all these strong guys were moving him around.
Well, it made it look like an older man.
Yes, and I remember. I think that's when I said, y'all was hugging me. Everybody was hugging me. And I just said, kids. That's all I said. Kids. Yeah, kids. But I was trying to hold him up. God, he was going to collapse with all of them around me.
Two things I would say is like when I first read the script, like I was very aware of the comic book because I was kind of a comic book geek, sidebar comic book geek. But when I first read this, when I finished the script, I was on the rooftop in Lower East Side, Chinatown, on Canal Street between Eldridge and Allen.
Hello.
And I had access to the rooftop, and I finished it sitting on my chair up there. And what I realized immediately is this connection to New York. Like they were in New York City, in the sewers, and they couldn't be seen on the streets. And I was just looking out into New York from the edge of this rooftop on my chair. Oh shit. Like I was like introduced to New York again in a way, like, okay. And so my relationship to New York changed now that I have this character that I'm sort of brewing over. As I was walking through the streets, I would kind of like, I'm, like no one can see me. And I just got kind of like walking around the streets, like, and sort of seeing New York freshly in a way. And then it's kind of deep, but then like, and then the next thing I would say is being with everybody here in North Carolina, even when we were like training martial arts in the East Side, East Village, and seeing my brothers here, like their process of putting these characters together was, I was very influenced by Mish and Dave and Josh, and watching them and their process of connecting to this. And that was sort of the seed unconsciously of becoming this team, which the Ninja Turtles are. The Ninja Turtles are not a me, they're a we. Sorry, I'm not trying to preach or anything, but it's like,
no, it's true. It's true.
It was about the four of us, and really the experience. And yes, Kevin and James and all these other people and Judith and all these people involved and Steve and, but like the four of us was like this bubble that was a big part of creating my character, was my connection to them.
Yeah, watching you guys together was so cool because the former, coming together and really becoming brothers. It was really cool. Outside of the turtle outfits, you could tell there was this really wonderful connection with all four of you, in your own way, which I thought was really cool too.
Yeah. When I first saw the comic book, John Stevens showed me the comic book. It was the dark comic book. I thought amazing, fantastic. I was really into blood and gore, so I thought I was doing something, really X-rated, hacking and slashing. And then I realized when I got the script, I realized it was light, like the it was lighthearted and very family orientated. So I sort of stayed away from watching the cartoon versions. I didn't really want to get those characters in my head. I sort of started from my base, where I'm a physical performer. So I started with the physicality of trying to push the character through the skin, through the 20 mil of foam, and trying to create that energy that you can push your performance to the outer skin of the turtle. And I think that for me was where I started, and then the dialogue came second. Once I started on the movement and done all the test films for Jim Henson, then I could start working on putting together the dialogue with the physicality. Yeah.
I assumed everyone else got sent the package that I got sent with four of the original black and white comic books once we were cast. They sent that to me, so I had some historical background to research with, which was great. And then, of course, our wonderful script informed a lot of the character. But like Leaf said, the real hammer to the anvil for all of us was the four of us surviving to create the characters as we went along. That bonding informed everything that I did as well. But yeah, initially it was some background material that they sent to me after I was cast. And then like James, I stayed away from the cartoons. I watched 5 minutes of the one and said, no, I can't see this because that's not what we're going to be doing. And after that, it was the burnishing on set and with these wonderful people.
In terms of the bonding, it was in a sense like we went through, I don't know, it was like Navy SEAL training. Like it was so
like
intense. And I feel like that we all, the four of us in particular went through that experience.
Mm-hmm.
It helped, as Misha was saying, and everybody was saying, it's like we were so bonded by absolutely unique experience that it really, it helped us to bring that connection and those relationships to life.
I'd like to hear, like, what was the most challenging thing about your specific characters, and also, like, what was the most fulfilling part at the end of the day?
I mean, I'll start with the fulfilling part. I mean, the most fulfilling part is because we're all vehicles for Steve Barron's vision, this director's vision. Like he's making this
amazing vision,
a part of this thing, right? So most fulfilling part is when I finally saw it,
That's
and
right.
I was just like, I had no idea. Like I saw that it was a gift, you know what I mean? Like, here it is. Because I was just in my own little thing, bonding with everybody and like like surviving and making this thing in Wilmington, North Carolina, and and eventually flew home, and but when I saw the movie, I was so proud, to be a part of it, and because it was so silly and playful and in such a good way, and there was so much quiet. There was so much space in the movie where it was just
amazing.
Still.
Yeah.
It was just still, and but that was back in a day, where kids couldn't wait to run outside and have their imaginations free, as opposed to today where they're getting their imaginations manipulated by content and screens. It's like a completely different time. And it was like this playful, silly, still, dark. It was just a wonderful thing, and all the struggles became so sort of minute, like, when you finally see what it was all for.
Yeah. Day one was the hardest day, I think, for everyone, because it was a new adventure for everyone. Puppeteers, directors,
everybody.
Crew had never seen this technology before. So it was a whole new experience for the whole team. And everyone had to get their act together and work out how we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
How are we going to make this movie in 8 weeks? And we had 3 weeks prep, I think, or something like that. But we were like in it, and off we went. And we were like in these costumes every day for 8 weeks. and that's a very short time span for a movie. So they packed so much in, first unit, second unit. They packed so much into this movie, and our heads were just into it, and everyone just worked as a team to get it done, to make it
Unbelievable.
happen, make it work. You know, it was a great team effort from everyone.
Being a puppeteer and watching it that way, different from you guys, it was like, this is cool. You know, because I'm watching Steve Burns' shots, you know, I'm watching what he's coming up with, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
For me, when we were filming, it was, I just felt so embodied, so in it, so like it was just the costume just helped me be single focused. And then the challenging part was in between takes, you know, and how hot we would get. And they finally made a little kind of air conditioned room and these special benches that we would sit on, and we were
Yes.
just like, it looked like we were in a monastery. Like we were just all like, you know, just stay cool, dude. Keep it together.
I always felt for you, Josh, when you did your scene with Kevin.
That's beautiful
When
scene.
you come back from losing your cool, losing your sigh, and that was a big number
Yeah.
with the camera move.
Oh yeah.
And I remember take 10, take 12, take 20, take 25, and
Oh,
I
wow.
really started feeling for you. And I
Yeah.
thought, my God, he's going through it. That must have been one of the hardest days for you, Josh.
Yeah, and that was also a scene where you know, like you said, Dave, like the
Camera.
camera, it was such
Amazing.
a specific move, and because the camera was so close, I had to do it blind and just feel, you know, just feel the scene.
It actually started with with Splinter's hand putting a teacup down, and taking his hand off, and then the camera moved around and found you.
Yeah.
You know, and then it ends with Splinter's hand touching your head, and I was like, oh no, because it literally did this. You know, so we had to do it again to make it natural, but you know, it's mechanical hands, so it's like it finally worked out because it was a beautiful shot. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
But it did take some time. It took some time, definitely.
That was that you asked about, like a rewarding moment, similar to Leaf. Like when I saw that scene in particular, it was like, it was all worth it. It was all more than worth it.
What these guys did, what they brought, the turtles, and with Splinter, it just seemed so real. There, you know, it was an odd outside, but you could feel the humanity of someone inside. So working with the four turtles and working with Splinter was just like working with anyone else. That made my part very easy. The probably one of the most challenging parts was at the end of the fight on the roof. I was told they needed, because they wanted to do a shot with they want to show the depth of me hanging off of the roof. And so it was an actual 3-story building on the set. And they, you know, I'm not a fan of heights. And they wanted me, they showed me a bicycle seat on a long pole. And they said, well, you know, that we're going to have you sit up there. And I had to be talked into it. But Pat Johnson, our stunt coordinator, deftly persuaded me to do it. So that was kind of, you know, because I'm sitting on a bicycle seat 3 stories up with a little wire holding me there while I'm battling with Splinter and trying to throw a knife. So that was challenging.
The challenging part was the whole experience of being in those suits in North Carolina in the summer. an odd choice. But the fulfillment for me, besides the finished product, which blew me away along with everyone else, is the fact that we are together 35 years later, and the bond is still as strong now as it was then.
Yes, 100%.
That's not true.
Well,
Well, I can't stand you, but that I didn't want to say that.
Now that I started doing these Comic-Cons, I'm meeting the fans, and I had no idea that there was such a huge, fan base, and that this whole enterprise of the Turtles is so vast, and it just continues, and it's a blessing to be a part of something like this. I mean, it doesn't it's very rare to be a part of something like this. And the fulfilling part is that I have met with fans, and they tell me really odd things like, like, you scared the crap out of me when I was 8.
Yeah.
Or, I had nightmares about you. Or
That's me.
people tell me, you're one of the best villains. And
Yeah.
actually it strikes me odd because I never thought of him as a villain. I never thought I was playing. I never approached. I looked at the script and dissected it by saying, "Oh, okay, these are the good guys, and I'm playing the bad guy, and so how can I be the bad person, the scary person? I was just trying to approach it however I was approaching it, but the way the way the people perceived the character actually as an actor is very fulfilling, because it means that I did my job, and a lot of times you never hear that. I mean, hopefully I did my job on other pieces too, but you never meet them, or people don't say, "Oh, I was really moved by that," or I was touched by that, or "You scared the shit out of me," or I should say, "Or you scared me."
I tell the fans at these conventions, and I too had to be talked into doing them, and boy, am I glad
Yeah,
that
same.
happened, because I tell them every time they come up to me that for me, the best part of being a turtle is meeting them and hearing their stories. It's
Sure.
very humbling, and my God, it makes you want to come back for more.
I mean, there's so many different elements that really make this first movie specifically very special, in my opinion. So I want to know, and this is genuinely, when you ask fans or fans that I've interacted with, they say that this movie, even though we've gotten tons of other versions, tons of animated shows, different movies, different comic series, this is the one that they say it to this day is the definitive version. It is the fans' favorite. Nothing has come close to this movie. So I want to know, why do you think this movie stands sort of the test of time?
I mean, I think it has to do with that, the physical challenges we went through allowed us and almost invited us to bring our soul to the performance. And I think that's why people respond to this. And, a lot of the CGI stuff it's technically, advanced, but you don't feel a being there. You see the looks of a being. And I think just the fact that we, all of us that are here, everybody in the film, like we committed so fully. We did everything we could to bring all of ourselves into the work. And that transcended the latex that we were below.
This movie has a story, and not only a story, but it shows where the turtles, it shows their relationship, and it shows Splinter and how that they're like a family, and it also for the Shredder, there's a backstory, and a lot of times the
Yeah.
bad guy is just the bad guy. You
Yeah.
just know but you have no idea why he's a bad guy or what happened to him to sort of humanize him in some way. But this movie, it had heart because so many people I've talked to, they love when the turtles go with off to the cabin, and and there's that part where because it's family. It's a family learning to be with each other, and later, once that's done, the later movies are more about fights and this
Yeah.
and that, but this one like set everything up, and I think that's why it resonates. And also, when you have real actors in the suits like these guys, it's not, the movements aren't automated
No.
as beautiful as they can be, but there is something coming out of these guys that's real, and I think it shoots through the screen. It people can sense that.
There was a marriage. There was a marriage between our characters, but there was also a marriage between our puppeteers.
Yes.
So
2000%. Yeah.
so we couldn't have done this.
No.
We were two people working as one, and that was a marriage that we had to form that relationship, and they had to understand us as personalities and actors at the same time, vice versa. So we could work as one. And I think we found that formulas. We found each puppeteer found the formula with their actor, and vice versa. And I think that's what made this show so magical. Uh, yeah, in my eyes, and that's why it stood the test of time. I think it's something that doesn't happen. No, I don't think anyone else emulates this style of filming. So hence why it has stood the test of time.
It's the suspension of disbelief. Magic happened. Like Yoda, the real Yoda. Like we all know as an audience that is a puppet. But the magic of Frank Oz's performance and the direction and the production design, we are transported and we believe in this magic. That's what and the Ninja Turtles movie is still in the time where it's still connected to that, to the theater, and the creature shop, the people that made these costumes,
Amazing.
the work that goes into making these things suspend us from our reality. It's just, that's why I say advancement, like CGI. It's CGI, of course, it has its, place. AI has its place, but back then we didn't question. There was no confusion of what was real or not. Now we're redefining what that is, and it's like to connect to an audience the way that I think Ninja Turtles does.
Amazing.
Because it is so, we are there, we are actually there, and there's blood that's actually working inside those suits, and blood helped create those suits, and blood is directing suits. It's different than going inside a little computer, and that's a different skill.
And I just riffing on the fans, what you were saying, James, it's somehow this resonated, each of these characters resonated deeply with these kids and in different ways. And so many, um, you know, people have come up to us adults and said, you know, you may like people have told me like I was angry as a kid and like somehow Raphael made me you know, see a part of myself and that I was okay. And also with all the other characters, like it was somehow it hit a chord and helped so many people through their childhood,
Sure.
which is something, you know, I think way beyond any of us expected.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I was one of those kids, and I totally agree. I mentioned earlier that every generation seems to just pick up a new gang of fans, and it just is this kind of evergreen growing thing. And as I was talking to my son the other day, and I was like, I don't think I've ever put on the first movie for you because he is just obsessed with like all the cartoons and all that stuff. I want to know if you guys have any words for like a new audience going to this re-release and experiencing this for the first time.
It's evergreen. It's totally evergreen because the connection and the personalness of it, it will, you know, will always be popular. I mean, it, you know, they find it, they find it. It's, you know, that's this type of, you know, movie and camaraderie that happened with it.
It also doesn't play, it was almost like an adult film for kids. Like
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
didn't play down to them. It treated them like we're gonna dive into some deep stuff here.
Such a diverse world now. So if Ninja Turtles can do it, you know, it can stand the test of time. And it's like, you know, the way the world is, we're so open now to everything. You know, we did that 35 years ago. It's
Yes. Right.
Turtles can be accepted, and anyone can be accepted.
And dark and light is part of every child's universe.
Sure.
I mean, they hide under the bed. They go to dark spaces. They love monsters. You know, they're you know you know I think their mistake today and back then is that sometimes I think like they have no connection to kids. Like they're trying to appeal to kids and give them shiny bright colors. You know, the original, the Disney movie Fantasia, that's a dark movie. You know, Snow White's a dark movie. You know, like it's you know, the kids love that. You know, they're not afraid of being in the dark. You know what I mean? Like they are, but it makes them laugh too. You know what I mean?
I would just say, please come and enjoy, have fun, listen to what everybody is saying and what they're doing. And in the end, the turtles will be with you. They'll stay with you.
Turtle power.
Turtle power.
We should give a shout out to Judith and Elias, who was
Oh,
in the
yeah.
movie with us, and they were fabulous. Both of them were fabulous
Absolutely.
and wonderful to work
Yeah.
with.
Absolutely.
They made us believable. They made us believable.
Yes.
Casey Jones.
They had to sell their story, and they sold their story beautifully.
And both of them believed in the turtles. Like they didn't
Yeah.
treat it like we were like, you know, they had a job to welcome us, you know, into the reality, and they did an amazing job with that.
They did it so well. Even rewatching it as an adult, I think they played it off so good. I'd like to know, what is your favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles memory? It could be from, you know, a scene from the movie. It could be something that happened on the set, behind the scenes.
My favorite scene in the film was the fireside scene that was mentioned. We were very emotional when we were shooting it, and it turned out to be a very emotional scene in the movie.
For me, it's the scene I did with Leaf in the farmhouse in the bathtub and like
Yes.
coming back to life. And that was just like really sweet moment. Like just
Yeah.
My favorite moment and scene is with Misha when we're waiting for the pizza in the sewer. You know, nice night.
Classic.
We rehearsed that for hours and hours and hours.
I remember.
And hours.
And it was the first thing we shot.
And it was the first thing we shot.
Yes, that's right.
And we used that scene to sort of understand the technique of what we need to do to bring these turtles alive. just with the head movements, working with our puppeteers who are operating the eyeballs and moving the mouths, where we look and how we move the head to look at each other and react and breathe. And that scene is just perfect, execution, not just on my end, but the entire team.
I have a few memories of having fun, lots of fun, going out playing pool with Leaf.
Oh,
Yeah, having some good evenings with the guys. Just all of us just had fun together. We'd always be jovial, joking, though we worked very hard. It wasn't all about that. We had a lot of fun together.
Would
And
we
my
go
second
bowling?
bowling. 2 a.m. in the morning.
bowling, yeah, we love bowling. All of us, very, very competitive. All of us.
I guess what memory comes to mind is like at lunch, because I learned that the monks would eat their food, and they would taste every bite, and they didn't watch TV or this or that. So at lunch, when everyone's hanging out and sitting, and I would take my food and I would sit in my room, and there was this Japanese music I was told to listen. And I, dun, 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 and I'd sit there, and I'd eat one bite at a time, and that was that's how I lived working on that movie.
Quickly, my fun, it brings me back to working with Jim Henson and Frank Oz and Dave Goles and Steve Whitmire and Richard Hunt. We always tried to crack each other up. We always came off the script. We always ad-libbed. So I didn't even know if this was going to stay in, but after I said cowabunga, I said, I made it funny. And they liked it. They left it, they kept it in. It was just an ad-lib. And then they made me do it on the second one. I made another funny, And so that was fun to get, that spontaneity and that silliness that I learned from working with those guys, to put that into and still work with Splinter. That was fun. That was fun that they saw it and they liked it.
I gotta add, like Kevin, it was my first movie. One of the things that brought me to focus in on I was so transfixed with watching you work, especially in the rehearsal process. And I was just so like in awe of your talent, because you were I just want to say this in front of millions of people. You are such one of the most gifted human beings I have ever met.
He always does this. He always embarrasses me. No,
Yeah. Thanks for receiving that compliment. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Lee. But I never done that. I was a Sesame Street performer. I was a Muppet performer, so I never got that opportunity. We don't have to memorize scripts on Sesame. We stack, we tack, we tape them up against the monitors and stuff. So I was really into it. I knew everybody's lines. I knew my line, and it was so exciting for me to be able to do something so different.
Just real quickly on a personal note, for me, was because being a turtle introduced me to Jim and then Henson's and then Muppets, and then became 34 years of my life after that movie. So I've been twice and triple blessed with this. Just a personal note.
As we wrap things up, guys, I got a quick question for all of you. I'm going to ask Josh first. What do you think your character of Raph would be up to today?
That's a good one. I'd like to think that he's found some sense of peace and that he can finally trust himself to enjoy himself and put his guard down.
Yeah. So we'll kick over to Dave with the same question. What do you think Leo might be up to today?
Oh, I think probably sitting in his rocking chair. I still have lots of energy. I think Leo has so much energy that we could do another movie.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm up for another movie. Yeah, I'm definitely up for getting back in that suit, and I'm definitely up for playing a more mature character, a much more
Love
mature character. Yeah.
Michelin, what do you think Michelangelo would be up to today?
Mikey, after a long career of doing stand up in small comedy clubs, would now be the manager of a Chuck E. Cheese somewhere.
I'd like to see that.
I would
I'd like
too.
to see that. Leaf, what about you? My favorite character, Donatello. What do you think he would be up to nowadays?
I like to think that like he has this like girlfriend. Yeah, he's met somebody. And they live together and they have like, a garden in some alley, between Second Avenue and First Avenue. Grow tomatoes. And he might like, he has his own like pizza place. Him and his girlfriend, like they make pizzas, gluten-free, crust.
I love that.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I love that for him.
It was so old actually anyway. He could still be, I think he might want to get him and Shredder might want to take a little, vaudeville thing on the road or something. Make a little
Or
extra money.
take a cruise together.
Yeah. Mend that relationship.
Like the Odd Couple or something. Yeah. They'll do the Odd Couple regional.
I would pay good money to see that, actually.
That would be funny.
James, if Shredder was around still.
I would hope Shredder would be living on an island somewhere, just enjoying himself and enjoying the sun, enjoying the waves, and just cruising through life.
I love that for him too.
Yeah.
Just getting a little tan.
Shout out, thanking to everybody. Thanking
it's great seeing
Steve Barron and Brian Henson.
Yes.
For being. This would have never happened if they were not in their vision of it. They were amazing. Yeah. They were beyond amazing.
Yeah.
And Jim Henson.
And
Jim Henson.
And a shout out to Todd Lundgren.
Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
There's so many. Definitely them. And it was nice the first one that Jim was alive that he got to hang with us and see how amazing he was.
That created my most favorite photograph of all the last 35 years of us with Steve and Jim in the sewer. That's photo that we have.
The best.
Yeah, here we are, guys. Here's the photo.
There it is. That's
on.
the one.
There it is. There's Jim and there's four of us.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a blast. This has been a blast,
for
guys.
having us.
I'm gonna just do this because I'm in the process of promoting my book. It's called Lose Your Mind: The Path to Creative Invincibility. And I think anybody that's a Turtle fan, it'll speak to them.
I just want to say again, man, it was a pleasure meeting all you guys, man.
Thank you for having us.
Huge moment.
Cowbanda dudes.